paranormal stories. Truly Paranormal brings you real paranormal stories by experiencers all across haunted California, a state notorious for some of the most bone-chilling and haunted areas on Earth. From shadow people to invisible poltergeists, hear vivid eyewitness harrowing encounters recanted by very real and candid people. Dream home turns into a hell home.
1996, 16 years old. Things kind of progressed rather quickly. We started hearing noises throughout the house, things going bang, progressed into, we'd hear a little girl laughing. Noises, things missing, throwing furniture. If you stand downstairs, it sounds like a hurricane's going on upstairs. You walk up and there's nothing there. Nothing's out of place, it's just all sound. That went on for a couple years, and then I move away, come back, and things are getting really bad. My mother would buy a carton of cigarettes. They come up missing. My brother had a really special jacket. They come up missing. They blame me for it. I'm like, I didn't touch this stuff and didn't get to prove it for years later. We had, 5-10 years later, my first daughter's already born, and we cut out one of the walls in the upstairs. As soon as you come up the stairs, you turn right, and it opens up. We have a hideaway wall on one side and kind of like a hideaway half wall on the other. It came out and blocked off, and there was this little oval cutout, nothing more than this big, little tiny thing. And we decided we wanted to expand the room into there. We cut it out. There's 2 cartons of cigarettes and my brother's jacket back there, and it's not fitting through that hole. 2 of the biggest incidents, I had a buddy of mine, I'm not gonna use his name, I don't know if he even wants to stick him in here. I'll just call him B. He came over, spent the night, a couple nights there. So first night, we sit on the computer and we're chatting up with a bunch of people online. Nothing really happened. There was some scratching, and I noticed it because I'm familiar with the house. He's just like, yeah, okay, you got mice, big deal. Okay, well, let's hope that's the only thing we hear. Night 2, we were we were talking to a couple girls from Pennsylvania or something, and he was like all into it, and I'm like, dude, no, it's time for bed. He's like, no, I'm gonna keep going. Whatever, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. So I go downstairs, pass out. I was in bed half hour, and he comes running downstairs. Yo, there's something crazy going on. What the hell are you talking about? He's like, there's some noises, and it sounds like somebody's walking across the roof. I was like, go to bed. Just telling you, just go to bed. It quits. He's like, no, I'm good. I warned you. He goes back upstairs. I didn't even fall asleep. He comes flying downstairs, sweating, eyes are like bloodshot, huge. He's freaking out. He goes, dude, there's something going on with your computer. I don't know if you're hacked. I don't know what the hell. Went upstairs, weird smell. It smelled like a burnt house, basically. The whole place just smelled burnt. Came in, noticed the smell. I was like, all right. And then it felt like the floor was vibrating. And it looked like the entire screen had just gone completely black with blood running down it. And I'm like, yeah, I got hacked, until I wiped my finger across the fucking screen. Done. I left the house. It came off on my finger. So we took off. Didn't come back for months and months later. Second occurrence, the biggest one that I've ever had in that house. We had built my mother's bedroom onto the house, and with all my research and everything, I knew if something was brought into the house, it was contained within the original structure. So when we built this house, everyone would feel safe. You walk into the house and it just feels like dread, cold, and just dreary. As soon as you walk into my mother's room, everything just dissipated, and you're upbeat again and just smiles, and it's like, yeah, it's like a breath of fresh air. I'm sitting in there, it's 11, 12 o'clock. And my youngest brother is sitting in the family room. Sitting there, and I hear somebody calling my name. Stick my head out, yell at my brother, what do you want? I didn't say nothing. I was like, you just called my name. He's like, no, whatever. And I turn back around, I'm playing on the computer. Hear it again. I'm like, dude, what the hell do you want, man? Come on. He's like, I didn't call your name. Like, okay, I just sit back. It never dawns on me what's going on, because by then we've heard our names called and beds have shaken. It's been a time. So I sit back down, turn my song back on, and I feel it's like my chair just wants to turn, and just over and over and over. I pick up my feet, my chair spins around, and I look down. As soon as you walk in, I'm sitting right here, facing this wall, behind me, mother's bed, hallway, bathroom in the back. So I'm spinning around, and when I turn around, there's a head, just best way I can explain it, there's a head floating in the hallway, and it's completely dark back there. I've seen it before, I have felt it before, and it is literally the epitome of fear. There's no other way to describe it. You are more scared than you have ever been in your life. It is beyond terror. Turned around, saw the face, came back around, and it was like the perfect storm. As soon as I stepped out into the main house, it was like this feeling just reached inside, grabbed my heart, grabbed my chest, and it was just squeezing me. And I couldn't breathe, I couldn't see. It was wild. I go flying out the door. Get myself outside, the feeling doesn't go away. And I'm like, oh great. And I'm standing in the driveway just freaking out. And it's about the best way to explain it, just freaking out. Never experienced that one before. It feels like, standing in the driveway, it felt like a warm blanket just wrapped around me, and I was completely safe, and it drove me nuts. Just all of a sudden, I'm good. So I'm right here in Chinatown, buddy. My legs carry me back into the house, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. There's no way I'm doing this. And my legs carry me back in the house. By the time I reached the door, I was like, this is happening. Let's go do it. And I just stormed in, went down the hallway, and I'm like, all right, you can terrorize some punk little kid. I'm a full-grown man now. Let's see what you got. And just basically challenging whatever it is that I've been seeing. Come show yourself now. And it completely just left. It was gone. I never saw it again. My brother's kind of freaking out, and everything just kind of goes calm again. So we walk around the house, we talk a little bit. My brother goes back to the living room, and he's sitting there with his book. I sit back down at the computer and continue on what I was doing. I hear the name again, and this time I'm already clued into what's actually going on. And I stick my head out, I was like, Val, are you really calling my name? And he goes, no, I'm not. Okay, I know what it is. I turn back around and wait. 20 minutes goes by and I hear it again, and this one gets me. I turn around, look into the main house, and I was like, what the fuck do you want? I'm gonna get you. And it came into my mother's room. I stood up, completely freaked out. It literally felt like I was having a heart attack. My legs wouldn't work, my arms wouldn't work. I'm stumbling. I trip my way into the main house, and it hits even harder. I trip over the coffee table, come around the coffee table, and as soon as I get in front of these stairs, I hear the phone ring, and then everything just stops. I catch my breath. Phone rings, and I turn around because I'm thinking it's my mother. I turn around, step back in front of the stairs, and then it just hits me again. Freaking out, turn around. As I turn around, something throws me up against the door and almost over top of it. There's a door intersecting both living room and family room, and something throws me up almost over the top of the door. My brother's there to watch this. He's freaking out. He leaves the house. I leave the house. I slept in my car. I didn't go back in the house that night, and I had this little tiny handprint on my arm, a bruise. And I'm like, this isn't real. And I had bruises on my chest, and I turned sideways, and it's a handprint. Like something, like the fingers lined my chest, and the thumb went across my back, and just over the door I went. 6 years ago, I come back, and my brother's staying there, and his luck is just horrible, absolutely horrible. He makes friends with this other guy. Yeah, I'm not calling him out either. But he leaves the house to him, leaves the house, and at this time I just spent maybe a week or two there, and I was gone again. After that, dude was in the house for maybe 2 months, maybe a month, something like that. House burns to the ground.
Well, I've lived in a few interesting places. I've lived in the Sacramento area my whole life, and anyone who's lived in Sacramento or anyone who's lived in old houses in Sacramento can tell you it's, a little haunted. I can definitely attest to that. One of my first memories is when we moved into an older house here in Sacramento. And the house itself was very cool. It was very, pretty. But when I was younger, I noticed it was a little odd. One of my first memories is me just playing in the yard and just seeing random people that were there. And I thought, oh, this person isn't supposed to be there, but then they would disappear. And it's like, and as a kid with an active imagination, I could sort of, explain that away. But when other people started mentioning they were seeing the same thing too, it was like, oh, okay, well, that's just something that happens here, I guess. And there are a few instances, like there was a very specific one when I was a kid. Because we'd see shadows of things, here, out of the corner of your eye, whatever. But one was, I was in the living room and we went into the back room because it was a very big house and there was a long hallway. And I could see a shadow of a little girl just sitting there. And I would look behind the door, I would look behind things, and I'm like, there's nothing that could cast this shadow. And it stayed there for like 15 or 20 minutes. And then I would turn back and it was gone. And stuff like that happened a lot. And you'd hear like music and, knocking and things, like people talking, which was in a busy house like ours would happen. And one of the oddest one, which happened right before we left, is it had gotten flooded. The whole area had gotten flooded, which caused a lot of electrical problems. And it stayed for months and months and months. And what was odd is we had an electrician come out and, to look at it. And he sort of stood there away from the breaker box, looking a little perplexed. I was about 12 or 13. And so I was just walking with my dad, and he's like, hey, what's going on? Did you find something wrong? He's like, I've disconnected the power to the house for safety reasons. He's like, okay. The problem is all the lights and all the appliances were still on. So that was an odd one. It was actually a very pretty house, As we left, things started to get a little more weird. I started seeing more things. I think it kind of knew that we were the last people because it did get demolished after we left. And it's kind of sad, really, but one of my last memories, we were driving up the driveway last time I went there, and we could see someone in the window, and it was waving at us. And I'm like, it was kind of sad, because not everything there was bad. I actually felt like everything there was sort of positive. So it was weird.
I lived in Sacramento about 10 years ago. At this address, it was 3405 Marsh Way. And I remember the first night we moved in, the chandelier in the living room at the time was swinging, like just in circle, and it was hot that day. We didn't have no AC. We didn't have any doors open. We were just moving our stuff in. And the chandelier was just going around in circles, and then it began to swing back and forth. After that, I would always wake up at 3:30 in the morning every night when I lived at that house. I was always having nightmares, just bad nightmares of somebody dying or something happening. You can hear footsteps walking through the house, all the way from the front of the door all the way to the back of the door. And we used to have the staircase that came wrapped around to go upstairs, and you can hear somebody running up and down the stairs, and it'd be like 2:00 in the morning and everybody'd be asleep. So I remember one time I was laying down on the couch and the lights had just shut off, and I thought maybe it was my daughter, But when I was calling out her name, I got up to look and she was asleep. And then I can recall another time too, where the front door used to always open and shut all the time at that address. And sometimes we'd be sleeping and the front door would just be wide open. I had asked the landlord what had happened in that house, and for a long time she just said nothing, nothing, nothing. But then I had found out that somebody had passed away. They were moving a refrigerator, and I guess they lost footing, and the refrigerator came and hit them, and they had died. And I believe they died in that house.
Hi, I'm Anastasia, and I was about 5 when I first had my experience with supernatural activities. My mom wanted to move in with her friend in Sacramento, and so they had decided to get a house together. And so we had moved into this house, and at first it seemed like it was really great, everything was really fine, it was a beautiful house, and we kind of decided to take the bottom bedroom, and my mom's friend decided to take the top bedroom. And after some time of living there, we each started experiencing different things. I remember my mom and her friend used to come up to me a lot and ask me if I had moved things, if I had if I had touched some things, and I used to tell them, no, I don't know where it's at, I don't know. And I used to notice my stuff would end up missing as well. So then I would ask my mom, hey mom, where are my shoes, where are these, where's that? And she would say, oh, they're by this, they're by that, and they weren't there. And so we would have to look for them. And they'd be in weird places, underneath the couch or underneath the bed. There was one time where I felt really, really scared, and I just felt an urgency to want to be out of the house. I ran upstairs, and as I'm walking up the stairs kind of spun like this a little bit. So as I was walking up the stairs, I could hear somebody walking behind me. And I remember I felt this intense sense of fear, and I stopped in the middle of the stairs, and I just felt like something was breathing on me. And I turned around and there was nothing there. And then I heard it go, "Too, too, too." And as soon as I heard that, I remember I just took off running up the stairs, screaming for my mother. And my mom comes down there, opens the doors, very concerned, what's going on, what happened? And I'm explaining to them there's somebody here, I heard them, they're walking up the stairs with me, they're always following me around the house, there's somebody here. I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I remember I'd wake up in these cold, hot sweats, and I would feel I couldn't breathe, and I would be terrified, and I wouldn't want to move, and I'd be strucken with just fear. And I remember I used to think to myself, if there's something there, this is my safe space, you're not allowed to come near me. And I remember I looked at the clock, and it was 3:30, and I felt something start climbing on the bed, and I felt it grab me. And I remember I got so scared, I just pulled the blankets over my head and I started crying. And I think it was just really hard for me because I had a lot of experiences like that. I think my mom started to have some experiences of her own because she started hanging rosaries on the wall. And when she would when she would go to work and I would go to school, we would come home. And when we would come home, we used to open our door. And when we would open our door, we would find like the rosaries broken on the floor. Like we would find our pictures of like Jesus and Mary broken on the floor. We would find like our crosses like upside down. And my mom at the time thought maybe it was her friend. So my mom was like, hey, are you like, what's going on? Like, are you having friends over? Like, are people going in my room? Like, what is going on? And she was like, no, like, I'm never even home, like, you know, all this stuff. And so my mom decided to get a lock on our door. And we got a lock on our door. And she hung up new rosaries, new crosses, and things like that. And we were still having those experiences happen. And then we started having them happen when we were sleeping. And I remember I used to have like these really vivid nightmares of like seeing like pentagrams on the ground and like just like blood and really gory things. And it would make me feel very unsettled. And then I would wake up, like I said, in these sweats. And my mom would start to wake up too. And she would say, Anna, did you see that? Did you see this? And I would say, no. I think she started seeing like black figures in the room with us. I didn't really ever see any. I think there was like one time when I did, but I kind of chose to ignore it because I just felt like I was having so much stuff going on. It was just very traumatizing. After a while, it kind of felt like a cat and mouse game, like you were somebody's prey. Walk into the room and we would see it broken on the floor in like 3 pieces. And to see it broken in like 3 separate pieces is like scary because it seems more intentional, more personal, right? Because if it's like, if it falls off the wall, okay, it breaks in one place, all right, I can buy it. But like, if it's like shredded in 3 pieces, that feels like it's intentional. And so when we would wake up from our nightmares, we would see that too. So it was kind of like, just like this sense of like, just fear all the time. And then as time was going on, we all started having our own experiences. But there was one time when we all experienced something together. And that's when my mom decided that we were gonna go ahead and just move. I was like, come here, come here. She's like, come here right now. And she's like freaking out. So my mom runs over there and I follow my mom and we look at her and she's like standing or sitting in the chair all curled up, afraid. And she's like, look. And she points up. And we look up, and I remember when we looked up, we just seen the ceiling fan like swinging like in all kinds of directions violently. And it was like very scary. And then it was swinging so aggressively, we're hearing like cracks from it. And so we ran to the couch and we sat there and we're watching it. We're like, maybe it'll stop. And we're sitting there watching it happen. And I just remember like looking at my mom, she was terrified, and looking at my mom's friend, and she was just like terrified as well. And we were all like sitting with each other, just scared, waiting for this to stop. And finally it stops. And after that, later on that night, me and my mom were in the room together, and she was like, this is it.
Hotel hauntings from the gold rush.
feel like we have just about everything that is possible to have happens in this house. Everything from olfactory apparitions, so you'll smell like campfire or perfume, cigarette smoke just randomly will appear. People get touched, things get moved or disappear completely. I've had some people who've seen shadow people or have seen several different things, but shadow people. We get activity with equipment, so they're really good about using like K2s and REM pods, and sometimes annoyingly so. And then they do also mess with all sorts of electronics. So like one day I had my first, I think, Airbnb guest came in and the oven wouldn't work. And so the next day I show up and it works fine. And I've learned that I do not call help in the first day. When a light doesn't work one day, I try it tomorrow. If it doesn't work then I look into fixing it. But because they do mess with the electronics so much, whether that be lights or ovens or everything else, I just don't rush to fix it. Or sometimes I just ask nicely for them to stop it because I have things to do. So the spirits tend to have different gifts, and they also kind of hang out in different spots. So that's some of the ways that sometimes I can tell the difference between them. So like Fred touches people. So I'm assuming when stuff gets moved, it's Fred because he can touch people. And then like Linda's really good at using the K2, whereas other ones can't do that. And Steve is always in the basement and his wife is pretty much hangs out in the kitchen. And there's one named Sam. I don't know, I have no idea who he is or where he came about, but we just have gotten the name Sam over and over and over again. He kind of seems to be able to do a lot of stuff, but then there's ones that I don't know who they are, but they're kind of, like we have ones more negative. We have some like childlike ones. So we're kind of like all over the boards, but sometimes with certain gifts, you just know that there are certain spirits that can do those, or they're in certain areas. This house is 7 bedrooms, but I only use 6 of them. So one of the bedrooms I chose to not make a bedroom, and the reason is that there's a spirit in there who's pretty grumpy. And I just didn't feel like people needed to be surrounded by that energy. And she wants, the only thing that we've ever gotten from her, like on EVPs, is basically F you and get out. So like she wants to be left alone. So I respect that. So I did not turn the room where she spends most of her time, I did not turn it into a bedroom. So it's just trying to like, I look at them as roommates. And so they have different personalities and so do I. And of course, like I try to take some of that into consideration, but ultimately this is my house. So there is some give and take. So I do ask for their opinions or I let them know what's going on. I just try to be respectful of them because I know that this is their house too. As long as we can all spend time, we can all work together, you know, but is it annoying? Sometimes it's very annoying, especially when they move things. You know, when you can't find something that you had, or they hide a guest's keys rather, or they stole my mother's glasses. I've never found those. Stuff like that. It can be really annoying sometimes, but for the most part, we've just kind of like learned to live with one another. And I feel like, I really have respect and appreciation for them. And I also feel like they feel the same way. Like they take care of me, like because they know I take care of them, or because they appreciate the fact that I take care of their house. They tend to get rid of people I don't like, or not even that I don't like them. I don't even know that I wouldn't like them. But we have had, for example, we had a paranormal group who was here one night, and this guy got really sick, and his group was worried that he was having a heart attack, so they made him leave. And they said, like, you know, drive home. If you get home and you still feel bad, you need to go to the ER. They work in the medical field. He got halfway home and he felt fine. Well, like that next day I went to like send him a message on Facebook to be like, hey, I'm so sorry. And then I saw his Facebook page and I was like, this is not somebody I'd want to hang out with. So I'm like, did they know that? And that's why. Or there'll be people sometimes, because I have cameras in my basement, I'll see when paranormal groups come through. I have cameras in my basement because it floods. And so there are times where I've been just like, I'll see somebody, and whether that's my empath skills I haven't quite cleared it. It's not clear to me if it's the house feeling some way, the spirit's feeling some way, or I'm feeling some way. But somehow it's all wrapped up. So like there was somebody and I found them very annoying. And I just kept saying, shut up. Like, shut up. This is what I'm saying as I'm watching them. And then they started doing an Estes method. And when the spirits told her to leave. And then when she came back, kept saying, stop talking, be quiet. And I was just laughing because I'm like, that's exactly what I was thinking. So I don't know if it's them or if it's me or what this mix is. But also, if you annoy me, they also tend to do things. I had a guest recently who showed up for a check-in on Christmas Day 2 hours early, which is pretty rude. And I was like up to my elbow in turkey. And so I had to like reprogram the locks to let him in 2 hours early on Christmas Day. So I was kind of annoyed by this, but didn't think too much about it. Reprogrammed the locks, have a good time. Well, that night he went to visit family, came back, and the next morning they were trying to leave and he couldn't find his keys anywhere. And he had to spend like $650 to get a locksmith to come from an hour away to redo a fob and his keys. So I asked, hey, do you want me to come look? Do you want me to come help you look? No. I'm like, okay. So came in later that day to check, and they told me where they were immediately because the house was all decorated for Christmas at the time. And in one of the bedrooms, there was a snowman, and the snowman had like a Elsa light-up wand across its lap, and the wand was on. So I went to go like, hey, well, what is this? To turn it off. And the keys were behind the snowman. Like the most random place. So I felt like sometimes I have to really like communicate like intentions or tell them even to be nice to people. My tenants downstairs, there's a basement apartment as well. I love them. They're great, but they were only supposed to be here for 2 to 3 months. And after that, the spirits started kind of being rude to them. And so what they were doing was on their fridge, they have like all the pictures of their grandkids, and they were moving their magnets to cover the grandchildren's faces, which is just rude. Creepy rude. You decide what word. But so I had to have a nice conversation with them, like, you need to stop that. I need them to help pay this mortgage. So, like, you better be nice to them or else, I might just have to sell this house to somebody who will paint this bookcase. And they stopped. They started leaving them alone. But for a while there, it was getting kind of heavier down there for them because originally when I did buy this house, I did buy it to be a long-term rental. So I do boarding houses. So I did buy it to be a boarding house. But I had people move in and they only lasted like 2 to 3 months. And so at that point in time, that's why I decided to turn it into an Airbnb, because I just didn't think maybe this isn't a place that people should be all the time. So our kitchen subfloor was destroyed, so I had to put in new flooring. Well, when I remodeled the upstairs bathroom, I just put in new flooring and a new vanity. After that, for like a month, the spirits were just kind of like nonstop active, like moving things and just like so many orbs you wouldn't believe. And so like I have all these videos of all the stuff that was happening during this time period. So I decided, well, maybe this time I'm gonna get them involved in the process, so maybe they won't be so grumpy. And so I did it in 2 different places. One was in the basement, the unfinished part of the basement. I put EVP meters on a gray tile and a blue tile because I couldn't decide what color I wanted. And down there, the blue tile like got pushed in one of the bedrooms. And again, I actually got both answers. One one time it was like the gray tiles, the other one was the blue, but they literally lit up EMF, like the EMF, the K2s, and cat balls. Like I had them on both of the tiles, so I asked them their opinions. And again, I got both, so I said, okay guys, like since nobody's giving me a clear answer here, I guess I get to choice, and you guys had better be okay with it. And so far, I haven't had too much crazy activity, so I'm hoping that worked. But for the most part, when I decorate, I don't really take them in consideration, but I didn't care which color, so I thought I'd get them involved to see if they had an opinion. But again, when there's like 12 of them, I could be getting answers from multiples. The energy changes here at night, and it gets very heavy around here and creepy just in general. As much as like I have a good relationship with the spirits, I don't love being here alone at night. Like I sleep with the back light on, and usually like in the living room away from the back side of the house, which is the worst. So even for me, but as far as activity, we had a group show up. There's the one who doesn't like noise, the one who's in the room that wasn't turned into a bedroom. She doesn't like noise. So she will bang and she will pound if you make too much noise or stomp. And we had a group show up and they were making a lot of noise, and the artwork on the back in the solarium fell off the wall and crashed and broke. And this is like 5 o'clock during the day in May, so it was still bright out. And so they were super freaked out by it. So they put all their meters around, and then like the REM pods started going off. So they recorded as they walked back there. And they said, oh, we told Elsie. And when they said that, they just like exploded. They all like lit up, because they were in trouble. They thought they were gonna be in trouble. So, but what did I do? I didn't get mad at the coyote for killing my dog. I took down that artwork, and I will only put up artwork that doesn't have glass. So knock it off the wall. It's gonna be fine. So it's like, that's a part of that living together thing. But yeah, they were a paranormal investigation group, and they were pretty creeped out by that. We've had a ton of paranormal investigations come through here. The craziest night was in August, was the centennial anniversary of the Argonaut mine fire. And in that fire, 42 miners died. So we actually just happened to, that night, have a paranormal investigation that was going to be here. And I kind of thought when it was getting close, like, I wonder if it'll kick up some energy for that. But that night, this house was just exploding with all sorts of things. So, like, we had a REM part on the shelf, and it was like SOSing to the point that we just had to turn it off. I believe that we may have up to like 3 portals here. And I believe that we have elemental spirits here. So I feel like we're kind of like in the conduit of like a paranormal highway of sorts, but the whole area, like the whole county or several counties, is very known for being haunted, between the mines and all the deaths that happened there, and the prostitution and the Native Americans and the Chinese that were interned and the Wild West living and everything that goes into it. I mean, it's just a very traumatized area. I did talk, there is a witch who lives next door. Yeah, she is a practicing witch, she's a very lovely person. And that used to be a hotel. And that hotel was run by the same family who owned this house for 60 years. So Steve, my basement spirit, he ran that. And it burned down in 1931, and then they built this quadplex next door, and she has a lot of the same experiences, which to me it makes sense, because to me these properties are extremely related. So it would make sense that she would have the phantom smells. Although she said that she had a fairy or a pixie, I don't remember which one, causing a lot of problems, and she had to get rid of it. And that's when I learned that those were real things. Like that, they weren't just fairy tale creatures, but people actually believe that they exist in real life. I literally did not know that, because I've never been involved in paranormal until I bought this house. Like, I'd never gone on a paranormal investigation before this house. I'm a highly intuitive empath and a physical medium, but I didn't use it for a really long time. And this house has really kicked it into gear, but like, I've never really been involved in anything paranormal before. So, and like the neighbor on the other side said that she caught on her exterior camera one day, it looked like 2 miners walking down the street. A guy who owns one of the shops down the street said he lived like 4 houses up, and he said that their house was like super haunted. He said that this section is where the Chinese internment camp was. And his basement, there was just like all sorts of stuff happening there. So yeah, like if you talk to people in Jackson about things being haunted, it's not, for the most part, it's not like a taboo or weird subject. It's just like everybody knows this place is haunted.
I'm both an employee here, but I've also been a resident here on 2 separate occasions for about a month each time, once last year and once this year. And Interestingly enough, we have communal bathrooms. It's an own hotel, so none of the rooms have their own bathrooms. So we share 2 bathrooms down the hall. And every time I take a shower in one, I am behind a shower curtain. The paper towel dispenser, which is the battery-powered type that you have to put your hand in front of to activate, is about 4 feet away from the shower. You're nowhere near it. And about 5 minutes into every shower that I take, one singular paper towel dispenses. And I've spoken to other residents and staff who have showered here and stayed here, and that has not happened to anybody else. It was very, very prevalent last year, and then I moved away, came back, and then started staying here again while I was looking for housing, and the first time I showered, it happened. Most recently, though, I was going to use the restroom, and it was probably about 11 o'clock at night, and to go to the restroom, you have to pass by room 10. And I passed by the door and I heard activity in there, and I knew that nobody was staying in that room. And I was curious. The lights were not on. I could not see lights under the door, but I heard motion. And I went over there and leaned in, and put my ear against the door. And from the other side of the door, there was a violent force that shoved the door into my face. I mean, there's a little bit of wiggle room with these old doors, and it just shoved me, and every hair on the back of my neck stood up. I got chills over my entire body. It was a very, very negative feeling. It was not positive. And I just went away from that door real quick, went to the bathroom, and went back to my room. Since then, we had a lady come in here who claims that she was a medium. And much of the ghost stories surrounding this hotel involve room number 5. I've never stayed in room number 5, but that's kind of the rumors. And she was in here and she was just talking a little bit about what she was feeling. And she's like, room 5, I'm not picking up on anything. And I was quiet this entire time, just listening. And she said, it's room 10 that I'm feeling the negative energy from. Cindy was telling me recently, she was walking down the hall. She was here alone. It was Wednesday when we're closed, and she smelled cigar smoke. And there was nobody here. There was nobody here. And she just scolded him and said, you're not supposed to be smoking in here. I know that Anita, who used to housekeep here, she's seen people down the hall. She's heard children laughing. She's heard women talking, and there was nobody here as well. And then supposedly there's a painting downstairs in the restaurant that one day out of the blue, this black silhouette of a cowboy appeared amongst this. It's kind of a bar scene with multiple people playing poker, dancer. It's kind of the old, Wild West saloon scene. And apparently that showed up out of nowhere.
So I've been working there for almost 2.5 years by now. It'll be 3 years in October. I've had a lot of experiences with our ghosts. We are part of the top 10 most haunted places in California, at least Northern California. Anyway, my favorite ghost that I've interacted with, her name is Myrna, and she frequents around the upstairs hallway where all the hotel rooms are. And she frequents more around and in room 5, which was supposedly her room. It always gets like weird, chilly vibes over there. I like it. I've earned her trust, I think, because now she doesn't bother me so much. She just says hi and goes away. So she doesn't really trust women. She was a prostitute back in the day, so she really likes the men. They always get kind of sexual vibes from her, and then women get you're not wanted here right now. That women get really uncomfortable, and men are just they giggle because it's weird because there's nobody there, but it's still a weird sexual feeling for men. I've seen doors close and open. I've seen the lights go off by themselves, and those hall lights are always on. And she just, does little things that are okay, we see you, we hear you. She likes to kind of play with your hair sometimes too, if she likes you. She does get very playful, especially when you've earned her trust. You're not there to disturb her or her space. You're just there to say hi and check it out and, not do anything to disturb her. There's a toddler ghost too. We don't know his name, obviously, but we've interacted with him a few times. He likes bouncy balls, toys that a toddler would like. And we've triggered him a few times with balls. He'll roll them back, he'll bounce them back. Yeah, we've heard giggles of a child, and it's like, okay, there are no children downstairs or upstairs right now. That is weird, but he's harmless, obviously. He just wants to play. And Big Dave, he's a prankster. He'll knock bottles down. He'll make our computer stop working. He'll change the volume up and down on our music. There's another ghost that I've interacted with. I don't know his name. I don't even know, like, if other people have seen him, but like, he's really tall, like a big cowboy hat with like the tall, you know, thing. Is it a gallon hat, 10-gallon hat, something like that? Yeah. But like his outfit and everything is definitely like old-timey cowboy. So he was definitely like here 1800s. They like to open doors a lot. That's like their thing. They like to open and close doors. I've had the door locked on me a couple of times, especially in the liquor room. Going in and out of the liquor room, I'm like, I can't get out. And then like 2 seconds later, the door will open. And I'm like, okay, I know that wasn't me not knowing how to open a door, because that was just open and unlocked. So they like to lock doors on us or unlock doors randomly. I got rushed as soon as I entered the 3rd floor, like rushed at by something, and there was nothing there. Like, you could ask my mom, she was right there with me. Like, it just all happened so fast. I got freaked out. I ran downstairs. Something was like gonna kill me or something. So I don't go up there. But for people who have been up there, they've had similar experiences of feeling unwelcomed or scared. I was definitely scared that night, and I don't really scare easily. So there was something that did not want either me or everybody in the room, you know, because it's said that that was the brothel back in the day. Oh, there is a room that I don't go into. That's room 7. I get really creepy vibes in there. I don't know what it is. I've been in there like twice, and each time it was the same creepy feeling. I'm like, nope. We've caught stuff on camera. We've caught like our old sign that, or our old frame that held our papers. The frame got knocked down, and there was no reason for the frame to have fallen. And like, you could kind of see it get like pushed a little bit, like somebody's trying to take it off the wall. And like, it moves like 3 times. There's nobody over there making, like, bumping into it on accident or anything. And it just falls down and the frame breaks. And yeah, that was really weird. That frame had been there for a really long time. And all of a sudden it just got pulled off the wall. And you can see it, it literally looks like it was being pulled off the wall. There's like maybe 24 of us who work there, maybe 23, I don't know. Anyway, I think pretty much everybody has had an experience or two. I don't know how many of us really acknowledge them though, like, because I know some people are skeptical about it, or they just don't let it bother them really. But like, I think everybody who works there has had some sort of experience where they were just like, whoa, you know.
3 weeks ago was my first week like on the job by myself, Monday through Friday. And yeah, it was the first day. Like, I've been here multiple times. I got here like just a little before 6 in the morning, and went to like the first prep table back there, just getting my knives out, just, you know, turn the breakers on, turn the lights on. And I'm standing there, and then right over in the corner here behind there is like a metal shelving unit. And there's a bunch of like 5-gallon buckets, and like the big black ones with the yellow tops, they're like stacked on top of each other on there, like on the top shelf. And I just take my knives out, and all of them just on the ground, like all of them. And it's like pretty heavy buckets, and they're on big metal shelves, so kind of spooked me a bit. I was like, okay. And then so the dude who does the drop-offs came in, and he was like, let's go with the buckets. So I was telling him about it, and he's like, man, the guy who owns this place swears up and down it's like haunted, you know? So I was like, I wouldn't, you know? Like, I don't not believe in ghosts. So I was like, yeah, it might be, you know? It's pretty creepy. And then later that same day, Monday, we had 2 ladies come working from the auto mall. They have like a catering cafe there. They're getting it renovated or something, so they're also renting out space here. I'm talking to them, introducing myself, showing them around and stuff. And then like an hour later, I have my little AirPods in, and I'm coming from the walk-in fridge to the line. And like, I'm walking, there's like a lady's voice like right behind me. And like, I didn't even register like I had my headphones in or anything. Like, I was like, oh, maybe it's them. So I take like 1 hour, I'm walking, trying to hear them So I look around the corner, there's nobody there. And I'm like, oh yeah, they left like a half hour ago to do their drop off. So I'm like the only one here. But it's heard like a lady's voice, like right behind me. And that was weird. So then the next day, the owner of Marsh Way was here. So I started telling him about that. And he's like, you heard a voice? And he was like, yeah. And he's like, man, it's crazy to say that. He's like, we had some other dude come do some work like on the bar area. And he ended up having to leave to go to Home Depot. So he was gone for like an hour. He came back and he said the guy came up to him and was like, hey, I'm the only one here, right? And he's like, yeah, I mean, I'm here. But he's like, no, you left, right? You just got back. He's like, yeah. He's like, man, I have the tools going and I hear people talking. There's voices everywhere. Like full voices. I'm like, I definitely heard one too. It was creepy. And then the next day, Wednesday, one of the two ladies working from the auto mall comes up to me and she's like, when do you get here? And I was like, I get here like 6 in the morning. She's like, what time do you leave? I'm like, I usually been like 2 in the afternoon. And she's like, okay. She's like, I just asked because I'm gonna be gone for 2 months. My partner, the other lady, this place scares her. She said she saw some ghost stuff yesterday. She wants to know when you get here because she feels a little scared. She didn't want to come in by herself. And I'm like, it's definitely haunted here. Yeah.
Demonic ghost activity abounds.
I was very skeptical about paranormal things, anything paranormal related. Until that night, I spent the night at my friend's house, and I was watching TV, I think certain channel, Top Gear, I think it was, I was watching. And I remember checking my phone, it was about 3:30, somewhere around there, 3:30 in the morning. And I heard, immediately after I put my phone down, I looked up at the TV and it went to white noise. And so that was strange. So I picked up the remote and I tried to turn the TV, turn the channel, that wouldn't work. So I thought maybe the batteries were dead or something. And I looked to my right because I heard some noises on the steps and some squeaking. It was a really old house, 120-year-old house, so it squeaks when you walk up the steps. And I heard footsteps as well. And when I looked over, I saw this entity. And I thought it was a human at first, but what made me believe it was an entity was because the way it was walking, the knees bent backwards as it walked up the steps, which I thought was pretty strange. And when it got to the top of the steps, it was extremely tall. It was hunched over walking up the stairs, and when it got up, it stretched up and its head was tilted to the side like this, because it was only 7-foot ceilings, so whatever this thing was, it was a little taller than 7 feet. And yeah, its head was tilted like this, and then I think it bent its knees down and it tilted its head straight up. Had a very long, narrow face with really dark black eyes. I mean, pitch black. The whole thing was pitch black. And I remember it stared at me for a few minutes, and or at least it felt like that long. And it was not happy to see me. I felt an overwhelming sense of fear and evil coming from this thing. And it just looked at me like I did not belong there, like I just broke into its house or something. It was really evil face, kind of like closed my eyes and prayed to God. And when I opened my eyes, right after I said amen, I opened my eyes, saw the thing flee into my friend's room. It passed through the door. I don't remember it opening the door. It just passed right through it, which I thought was pretty strange. I thought maybe I'm just seeing things, but I stared at that door for the next few hours till my friend woke up. He usually woke up pretty early, about 6:30 to 7. And right when he came out that door, I got scared because I thought it was the thing again, but it wasn't. And I asked him, I said, someone in there with you? And he said, no. So I said, somebody went in your room last night. And I don't know who it was, but I didn't sleep. You don't just sleep after you see things like that. My friend at that time told me that he has experienced visualizations when he wakes up of a demonic creature trying to choke him at night. The way his body was positioned, it looked like something was strangling him. His face was purple, and his chin was down, and his hands and feet were stuck up in the air. Like he already went into rigor mortis in that position. So we thought it was pretty peculiar, you know, that he told me that just weeks before he died. And now he's sitting there like this, and told me upon moving into the house that the house was haunted. And of course I didn't believe him. I was like, okay, whatever, the house is haunted, okay, I'll believe that. And I tried to explain to him, you know, it's just a really old house. Maybe once you get settled in, you'll feel different about it. But he didn't. This was a year into the house already when this stuff happened. And there's been other people that have had experiences. One of my ex-girlfriends was there, and my friend and I witnessed her getting pushed down the stairs. I thought maybe she tripped or something, but I didn't see the whole thing. He saw the whole thing and said it looked like somebody pushed her. I had just seen her falling down, and she was pretty scared to go back into that house ever since then. And I was still skeptical until about, I think 6 months later is when I had my experience, and then I started to believe everything that everybody ever said about that place. He was 19 when he passed away in that house, in that room that I saw that entity flee into. He passed away there.
When I was a child, around 8 years old, and I was living in Sacramento, and one night I woke up because I couldn't breathe. And when I woke up, there was this greenish, gaseous, toad-faced demon with 4 arms, and its torso was just long enough to have the 4 arms, and then it went down to a point, and 2 of the hands were over my mouth and nose, so I couldn't breathe, and the other 2 hands were grabbing my wrists, so trying to pin me down. And I was like, I couldn't breathe, and I'm like struggling. Then I'm calling out, started calling out to God, God help. And boom, as soon as I did that, broke free and it was gone. And I could breathe again, and I was like, whoa. That was wild. There was another time I woke up in the middle of the night and I fell down onto the bed. And I remember I had been floating about 6 inches off the bed when I asleep, and then I woke up and boom, what the heck? And then there was another experience with my mom, actually. My dad was away on a business trip or something, and me and my 3 brothers, we woke up in the middle of the night, my mom screaming, bloody murder or something. And we all come rushing, what's going on? And she swears she woke up, to have to go pee or something or whatever, but there was this dark, shadowy figure of a man standing in the doorway to her bedroom, and she's like, no one's supposed to be there. Freaked out, and of course, as soon as we all come running out of that, there was nothing there, it was gone. And so, and I had already told my mom about the demon attacking me. And so she got curious and started doing some research on the house. Come to find out, I don't know if it was the immediately previous owner or the one before that or something, but it was one of those cases where, the guy, husband or whatever, went crazy and killed his whole family, and then himself suicided in the bathtub. And I was like, oh, okay, so there's obviously some residual evil hanging around that house. Great-grandparents' house back in Kentucky. That house was definitely haunted. And there was this one room in the back. It was like an old southern mansion, 2 stories, only 2 bedrooms upstairs, but each bedroom was like half the house, 6 beds with plenty of space between it and all that. But on the bottom floor in the back was this 1 bedroom, and I swear in the middle of the day, you could walk in that room and the hairs on the back of your neck would stand up. It was like that much of a presence. And it also had a graveyard out in the front yard with 6 graves and stuff. And my mom swears that when she was a little girl, when she would stay there, in the middle of the night, she could hear music, fiddling and dancing and stuff. Somebody would throw back the rug and back in the day and have a dance party or whatever. Kind of a scary proposition going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, because you'd have to get up and walk down the hall or the stairways and get to the bathroom, or you just had this eerie feeling, especially with these paintings, how they watch it and walking by, that kind of thing.
Hi, my name is Connie. I've had a lot of experience with paranormal activity. A couple years ago, I was working at a job in Stockton, California, where they used to have the old medical buildings. And I was stationed there, and we used to have to do a lot of physical activity outside. And I remember looking up, and I would see somebody standing out, looking out the window, and then it would just disappear. And one day I'd ask my supervisor, who stays in those buildings across the way? And he had told me nobody stays in those buildings, they're vacant. They've been closed down for a very long time. So where we were stationed at, in a wing of a hospital, of an old hospital with a mental facility, the asylum, I was speaking with my roommate that was in there, and all of a sudden we just heard this big, loud, like if somebody just came and just slammed the door. And we jumped up, me and my roommate at the time, and we were so scared that we didn't want to go see what it was. We used to have a supervisor come and supervise us in the showers and, walk us to our dorm, because we were so terrified, because we would hear doors slamming, our doors would open and slam. And then I can recall one time I was taking a shower. The supervisor was standing outside of the bathroom area, and I remember I felt somebody, just grabbed my hair and literally just pulled it up. And I turned around, there was nobody there. And I was so frightened that I just hurried up and got out of the shower.
Talking with the spirit world.
I used to play with the Ouija board. A friend of mine, actually, I was engaged to her son, and she and I became good friends along with my mother. And she read cards and did the Ouija board and all that. And my mother, she could be sarcastic sometimes. And whatever was coming through the board, this one time, it was at my friend's house, my mother cussed it out and really made him mad. So of course he came after me, whatever it was. I had my own apartment, this was in San Pedro. All of a sudden my whole life just went to hell. I lost my job, I broke up with my boyfriend, my car broke down, and I was losing my apartment all within a week. So my friend, she came to my apartment because we needed to get rid of whatever it was that was going on. So we have this little ritual set up, and she said, no matter what, don't stop what you're doing. No matter what you hear, no matter what you see, no matter what she says, don't stop what I'm doing. So I'm focusing, I'm doing my thing. I'm facing toward the ocean, because the front door is down a long hallway on the inner part of the apartment building. All of a sudden, it's like a hurricane was going on in my house. Inside my house, the wind, the lightning, the thunder inside my house. And all I heard her say was, oh my God. And I didn't break my concentration, I didn't look. But the inside, just inside my front door, which was way away, the rug was burned. I had to get rid of a lot of the stuff I had. My bathroom was decorated in black and gold. Well, you can't have black candles, not with stuff like this. And all my books and all kinds of other stuff, I had to get rid of everything, just in case, and start over.
A little over 20 years ago, we had probably been in this house like 1-2 years by then. And my sister-in-law, Diane, was coming up with her husband and her best friend, Sylvia. So I knew she would play the Ouija board with me, and at the time I didn't know a whole lot about Ouija boards. I've always wanted one. It was, you know, I just never had gotten it, and always been curious when I was throughout my teens. And my husband Bear came home, and he had found a Ouija board in one of the trash cans at his job. So he had brought it home for me, and so when Di came up, we decided to play the Ouija board. And it was kind of crazy. I mean, I kind of like looked at her like, is she moving it? You know, you get that. My sister-in-law asked about when she was gonna die, and the board, or how old would she be when she died. And the board told her, I think it was like in their 90s, if I remember right. And she asked it when their sister, Debbie, would die. And it said that Debbie would pass away in her, I think it was her 70s. I'm not quite sure how old she was. And Diane instantly was like, there's no way. There's no way. Diane's always had the health issues. She's like, Debbie, and Debbie's younger. So she was like, there's no way Debbie's gonna pass away before us, you know, or me. She reminded me of this probably 2 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago that 3 years ago, my sister-in-law Debbie and her daughter Tracy were murdered, and it was a double homicide suicide. Diane was like, you remember that the Ouija board told us that she would die at this age? And then it like clicked. I was like, oh, that's right, you know? And so I didn't really think much of it going back to 20 years ago. I didn't really think much of it after. I mean, we were supposed to go in and eat the dinner, and we were trying to end the Ouija board session. And, you know, you always say goodbye to the spirits, and you know, to close it out. It's just something you're supposed to do. So every time we said goodbye, it would go to high. It would spell out H-I. And so it got to the point where we were like, okay, we gotta go. We gotta go. So we just put it away and went in and ate our dinner. Everything was great and everything. And I didn't think nothing of it. Never played it, you know, after that. Probably a couple months into it, that the kids, my kids, we have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, and my girl's my baby. The 2 boys probably were about 4, 3, and the girl was like 1 maybe. And they all talked a little bit about this imaginary friend. And I didn't think anything of it. I mean, imaginary friends, kids have imaginary friends. It's nothing new. And I wasn't feeling anything weird or anything at that time. And, you know, they'd always tell me about this imaginary friend named Michael. A couple months after that, I was starting to see out of the corner of my eye, you know, like, especially in the hallway, I'd see like a child peep around the corner in our hallway, and I'd turn and look, and there would be nothing there. I asked my husband, I was just one day out of the blue, I was like, have you seen anything weird, anything, you know, have you felt anything, seen anything? And he was like, yeah, actually, I've been seeing things out of the corner of my eye. It was around for a few months, and the kids continued, you know, it was Michael this, Michael that, you know, and so I knew that it was named Michael, obviously. And so It was a couple months after that we started hearing things. We would hear footsteps up and down the hallway. My husband and I would be in bed, and he would wake me up because I'm deaf in one ear, so he'd always have me turn over so I can hear, and he was like, you gotta listen to this. And it was like heavy footsteps all the way up and down our hallway. And so we knew it wasn't the kids, because the kids were all in bed and everything. And it started knocking, like we would have at the time tapes of the VHS tapes stacked up in the kids' room. And the kids would be in bed, and it would knock over the stacks of videotapes in the middle of the night, and wake us up. And so it started doing that, where it was starting to get to the point where we were having a trouble sleeping, it was keeping us up at night. So one time after that, one of my best friends, Crystal at the time, she came up. She was living in Mammoth during that time, so we didn't really see each other that much. She came up, she wanted to see the kids and hang out with Bear and I, and so she spent the night that night, and we went to bed. Bear and I went to bed, the kids were in bed, and she was kind of getting prepared, and she was walking around our living room, and she happened to glance over there, and she saw a shadow of somebody. So she thought one of the kids had gotten up, and so she walked over, and she looked in the hallway, and there was nobody there. And she checked the kids, and the kids were all sound asleep in the bed. So the next morning, before she had left, we were sitting on our couch, and she was telling me what had happened. And at that time, our animals, we had 2 animals, a cat and a dog, both were perfectly potty trained, no problems ever. I mean, they're very potty trained. And these 2 animals had started to go to the bathroom in the house, which was very odd, very odd for both of them. And so when she was telling me the story, our cat at the time started freaking out. He was right next to us, and she's telling me about what she saw and everything, and he is pretty much screaming, and we kind of stopped, and we're like, what the heck? My husband at the time, one morning, was brushing his hair, looking in the mirror, and he saw in the mirror a little boy with a hand on our dog at the time, and just walked in, no big deal, just walked in. And he thought one of our kids had gotten up. So he finished his hair, and he went around the corner to, go put them back to bed, and there was no kid. And this is something that we both had noticed, is the little boy had dark hair. It was almost black. He started getting really active. We were hearing the footsteps every night, I think it was, and the videotapes, and everything was falling, things were knocking off. So it got to the point where we just couldn't take it anymore. Well, I had this place down in Loomis that I would go to that, carried Wicca stuff, and I had talked to the owner a couple times, never told my story, never told her anything about, what was going on or anything, so I told my husband, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go down and go to the Wicca store, and I'm gonna see if there's something we can do to get rid of whatever this is. When I entered the building, I asked the lady behind the register, I was like, is such and such here? And she's all, no, she's not here yet, but she'll be here in 10 minutes or so. She walked in, and behind her walked in, he almost looked, I wouldn't say ethereal, but kind of you know, there was something about him. The moment he walked into the store, he instantly looked at me and he goes, "You're the reason I'm here." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" You know, and he was like, "You're the reason I'm here." And I was like, okay. You know, I didn't know at the time who he was. I've never met him in my life. Nobody in that store, except for me, knew my story. Nobody. I mean, I didn't even tell the cashier at the time. And like I said, I never talked to the owner. And he was like, I was supposed to get on a plane this morning and fly back to LA. But my spirit guide told me that I have to wait because there was somebody here that I needed to help. And I was like, okay, so you're a psychic, you know? And at the time it was like, I didn't really believe, you know? And I mean, I believed, but I didn't believe. And I was like, some people, you know, you don't know if it's real. Some people are kind of fake. So I wasn't gonna tell him anything. I was just gonna let him talk and see what he said. And he instantly told me that I had two ghosts. I had two spirits living in our house. And at the time, you know, I was like, no, there's one, you know? I mean, we only had thought of Michael, you know? We didn't realize at the time that there was two. We would just put it all together as it was just the one entity. And he was like, no, you have two spirits in your house. He said, and then he goes on and he goes, when you played the Ouija board, and I was like, he knew that? You know, I was a little like, okay. He's like, when you played the Ouija board, you actually opened a portal in your living room, and that's how they came in. He said, you have two spirits. He goes, you have an older man. And I was like, okay. He was like, do you know any older men that would be hooked to you? And I was like, no. He goes, but you have a little boy. And I was like, okay. And he was like, his name's Michael, and your kids know about him. And he said that he was the one that we were talking to on the Ouija board. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So, I mean, as soon as he said Michael, I was like, I really started listening to him. You know, I was like, okay, well, this guy must be a real deal, because he knows like so much stuff, you know, and stuff that we didn't tell anybody there. And so he was like, Michael came through the Ouija board and he saw you with your children, and he saw how good you were as a mother, and he felt like you could protect him, so he kind of linked himself to you. He goes, he's here right now. He's here. He goes everywhere with you. What happened was the little boy hooked to you because the older man in their lifetime, the older man was the stepfather, and he used to lock the little boy in closets, and he ended up murdering the little boy. And after they were both passed, he tends to follow the little boy wherever he goes, and he tries to find him and he tries to kill him, basically. So it's like he's trying to, it's kind of like they're living in a circle, you know, doing it over and over. And so he goes, that is actually one of the reasons I'm here, is my spirit guide wants us to take the little boy, and he'll be in protection and he won't have to deal with the stepfather ever again. So as we're talking, it was really weird, because as we're talking, this girl comes running in the front door, and she's like wild. I mean, her eyes are open, you know, she's like running and like out of breath, and she's like, what's going on here? And we're like, what the heck? And apparently the people there knew her, or the owner knew her. And she goes, I was driving by, wasn't gonna come in. I had no reason to come in today. She goes, but I was driving by and my spirit guide told me I had to stop here and I had to come in because there was something that needed help with. And we're like, okay. So, yeah, so they ended up taking the little boy, and I was like, what could I do to banish this guy from our house? Because he's the problem, you know, and he had told me that all this stuff, the cat, the dog, the footsteps, everything, he said everything started when the stepfather found the boy. And so I'm like, okay, well, you got the boy who's the good part, but what are we supposed to do? You know, I was like, is there something I can do to get rid of him? Because we need to be able to sleep again. And so he told me about saging the house and basically walking around to every corner, every spot, you know, into cabinets and into closets and saging the house and saying a prayer, basically, you know, and telling them it's okay to move on. And so I did that and it worked.